Good evening. My name is Thurman Greco, and the name of this show is Let's Live with Thurman Greco, and I'm coming to you on Channel 23 in educational television in scenic downtown Woodstock, New York. And we have a really interesting guest this evening. So can you introduce yourself and tell everyone what it is you're up to, because it
Sure.
sounds like a lot.
Well, I promise to be interesting then. My name is Frank Marguette, and I own a theater company. I actually own two theater companies, but the one I'm here to talk about today is Theater on the Road. I also own Murder Cafe, and next year, 2023, we'll be celebrating our 25th anniversary. And I perform a variety of shows throughout the Hudson Valley area year-round. I'm currently in rehearsals for our version of A Christmas Carol. We do the only dinner theater version of A Christmas Carol, I think, in the state. And I have 13 performances coming up in December. 7 of them are open to the public. The others are either private shows, or we also perform up at Mohonk Mountain House, which is open only to their guests. What else do you want to know?
Well, now tell me where these shows are and how do people get tickets and all of that kind of
well,
stuff.
the easiest way is to go to my website, murdercafe.net, murdercafe.net, and on the homepage you'll see A Christmas Carol. It'll have a description of the show with a link to our December calendar page. And then on each of the dates, you'll see where we're performing, what the cost is, and how to make reservations or buy tickets for those dates. We're at, to name a few places, we'll be at the venue at the Best Western in Kingston on December 21st, Wednesday, December 21st. We'll be at the Beekman Arms in Rhinebeck on Wednesday the 7th and Wednesday the 14th. We'll be at Meadowbrook Lodge down in New Windsor. Like I said, we'll be up at Mohonk Mountain House every Friday in December with A Christmas Carol. And I'll be at the historic Hotel Broad Alban in Broad Alban, New York. La Chambord at Curry Estates in Hopewell Junction. We'll be at Vineyard Commons, which is a senior residence in Highland. And Shaker Point, another senior residence in Albany, or Waterville, near Albany. So altogether, there are 13 performance dates. And this, as I mentioned, I'm in business 25 years, and this is the 23rd year that we're presenting A Christmas Carol as a dinner theater show. And it's very popular. People come, bring their families, year after year, they make it a tradition.
And now, do you have, the shows are in the evening? Do you ever have matinees, like Saturday afternoons or Sunday afternoons?
We only have one matinee this year, and it's the one at La Chambord in Hopewell Junction. Almost all of them are in the evenings. By evenings, I mean doors open at 6:30, dinner and show at 7 p.m.
And so they're actually in the hotels?
Correct.
And it includes a meal?
That is correct, yes.
That's lovely.
It's
Yeah.
a 3-course dinner with the show. The show is broken into 4 scenes, and we do that to accommodate the dinner service, salad, entree, dessert. With A Christmas Carol, we cover all of the highlights. We have 8 actors, 13 characters. Of course, we have Scrooge and Tiny Tim and the Cratchits. We have all the ghosts. My wife made all of the costumes, and the costumes get a lot of attention. They're like the 9th actor. That gets,
Wow.
The costumes practically have their own dressing room.
Wow.
Yes.
But when did she start designing the costumes?
The first year we did this, and this is a story, I was living in Las Vegas, Nevada. I was a major accounts manager with the Las Vegas Review-Journal, the daily newspaper, just before newspapers started their decline. I was also doing dinner theater as an actor, and I started our murder mystery dinner theater company in 1998, the fall of 1998, and we were performing quite regularly at a high-end steakhouse in Las Vegas. We would do 8 performances in December and then throughout the year for private parties, fundraising events, and so forth. So the manager of the restaurant came to me one summer and she asked me, "What do you think of a dinner theater version of A Christmas Carol?" I said, "I've never thought of it. I've never given it any thought." And she said, "Well, we have." And she said, "One of our sister restaurants in California is doing it." She said, "You should look into it." So I did look into it. They wouldn't speak to me. When I asked about it, they said, "Well, you're not getting our script. You'll have to write your own."
Thanks.
So my wife and I read A Christmas Carol, and we made notes, and we developed it into a script, and I showed it to the restaurant manager, and she said, "Let's do it." So we cast it, and my wife is a costumer. She's an artist, and she made all of the costumes by hand, researched them very carefully, got all of the right fabrics, studied the time period. We're talking 1850s London now. I mean, we always had one actor play all 4 ghosts. We have Marley, Ghost of Christmas Past, Ghost of the Christmas Present, and Ghost of the Future. A lot of work went into those costumes because we want the audience to just be overwhelmed with the experience. And we have 4 Victorian carolers who go from table to table singing traditional carols. They all double as actors. So one of the carolers is also Bob Cratchit. One of the carolers is also Mrs. Cratchit, and one is Belinda Cratchit, and so forth. So the first year we did it, this is now December of 1999 in Las Vegas. It caught on right away. It was a big event, and every year after that, it just grew in size and stature and reputation. And we left Las Vegas in when did we leave there? 13 years ago. And the last year we performed it, it was still very successful. And we were also doing it for private party entertainment as well. So when I moved back here, and I grew up in Kingston, right here in Ulster County, we decided to take the show with us. We recast it. I went knocking on doors, and I got a lot of questions. "What are you talking about? A dinner theater version of A Christmas Carol?" I said, the guests actually interact with them while they're having dinner. There's no fourth wall in my theater, in the way we present theater. So right in front of you is Scrooge, and it opens with Scrooge and Bob Cratchit, and they're visited by the Woman of Goodwill. And then after she exits, nephew Fred. And then the next scene, Scrooge is alone and he's cold and the church chimes are annoying him. And then there's chains rattling and in comes the ghost of Marley. And then it goes on from there.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So you work on this, but you also talked about murder dinner theaters?
Correct.
When does that take over?
Year round. I do that year round. We're sort of in a hiatus. I have one murder mystery dinner show in December 3rd. By the way, Saturday, December 3rd, we're doing A Christmas Carol at Tenbrook Commons, the senior residence in Kingston. One of our cast members, Marissa Gorsline, works at Tenbrook Commons, and we did it last year there for the residents. So that day, after Christmas Carol, we're going to Walton, New York, to the Castle on the Delaware to perform a murder mystery called Murder at the Mic, which is a murder mystery that takes place during a karaoke competition. So it's sort of seasonal. Right now, I'm working on Mohawk Mystery Weekend. That's when our season really starts.
What is the date on that one?
First weekend in March.
Okay, so that's when the season starts.
That's when it starts. Actually, that's not necessarily so. February, we always do a Valentine's-themed murder mystery at the venues that I mentioned for Christmas Carol. So we do a Valentine's-themed murder mystery in February, usually 7 or 8 performances, And then the first weekend in March, we're up at Mohonk Mountain House for 3 days, presenting what they call Mystery Weekend. And they've been doing it for 45 or 46 years. I've been doing it up there this is our 6th year. Every year it's a different theme. They usually get approximately 240 guests. It's a weekend package. Guests pay for the rooms, the accommodations, the meals, and the mystery takes place over the entire weekend, starting Friday night. It goes all the way through Sunday. Sunday's the big reveal, the big wrap-up, and I love it. And whatever show that we do at Mohonk, then we take that on the road and we do it elsewhere. And then we usually have a spring show, a summer show, and certainly in October, Halloween-themed murder mystery. And I do, in addition to the public shows, we do a lot of company parties and a lot of fundraising events with the murder mysteries. People love them. I did one last Saturday night at Temple Beth El in Poughkeepsie, and it was a fundraiser for their school. So you never know what's going to pop up. Who's going to call, who's going to have an idea and I work with them. We customize those shows for the venues and the events.
So, and then your wife does the costumes?
Yes. We have a large costume collection, and...
You beat me to the question, because
okay,
that's what that's really what I want to know, because
okay.
you've got all these shows that
yes.
you do. So she's got shoes
right.
and hats.
Yes.
And
Scarves.
but those are the important things, and then you have the dresses and the other things.
We've been collecting them for 25 years. She's made most of the dresses, the period dresses, but we also always have our eyes and ears open. We go to flea markets. I remember we were in LA over 20 years ago, and we went to a vintage store. You will never see this again. They had, maybe they were from movie sets, I don't know. They were selling men's 19th century tailcoats. You cannot find those. And we bought all of them.
Wow.
And my wife has since made some of those, but we have over 12 of those in our collection, and they're very hard to find. So vintage clothes, because we do history tours as well. So we have just a very extensive costume collection and prop collection. Everything you could think of.
I would imagine that that's a big part of her life. Scouting them out, I mean, making them and getting them to fit, that's part of it.
Right.
But you have to be, I would imagine she's constantly seeking.
Constantly. This past fall, between September, let's go back to August. In August, I did Dracula on Bannerman Island, the original Broadway production, and we did it in the Widow Jane Mine in Rosendale. Between Dracula, the Old Dutch Church Cemetery tours in Kingston, the Rhinebeck Cemetery tours, the Woodstock Historical Society, we had an 8-character play there at the Ames House in September, which we talked about the last time I was here. And the Halloween murder mystery, we had to costume over 40 actors between August and October. All different time periods. And we did it. You do it. You roll up your sleeves and you do what has to be done. And every one of those actors has to come in for a fitting. They have to, okay, who are you playing? And what time period is this? And then she starts the search, looking through to see what she has. And then stuff comes home at night to be hemmed and all of that. Yeah.
And so you get people, you get actors and musicians or dancers and singers and whatever, but I would assume that with how you are specialized, that when you look at somebody as whether or not you're going to be able to use them in your production,
right,
is whether they're going to fit into the costume. I mean,
yes.
Really.
I know. That is a consideration. I don't like it at all because...
Well, what are you going to do? My goodness.
I've worked with theater companies, and I know there are theater companies that will cast depending on who fits into what costume. And I go, that's a little unfair, but It is a reality because sometimes you're faced with these wicked deadlines. There's no time to make a new costume. And you're not quite sure if this person is going to work out or not. And my wife has made costumes from scratch. I mean, buying the material, fitting the person, making the costume, and she's a perfectionist. She's sitting there sewing. And that person will only work with us once for whatever reason. But the costume hopefully will fit someone else at another time.
Wow.
It's a lot of work.
Do you have cast members that are with you from year to year?
Yes, I do. I have a core group of people, I would say somewhere between 10 and 12 that are with us on a regular basis. I could whittle that down to between 4 and 6 people that are very close to me. They become family members. So I know who they are, I know who fits what, and sometimes I will think of them when I'm either writing a new show or casting a new show.
Right.
Yeah.
You get a script and you say, hey,
That's
she's
perfect.
going to fit for this one.
Exactly.
Okay, we'll use that.
Right.
Well, and of course, you not only have the costumes, but because your stage keeps moving, you're driving all up and down the Hudson Valley.
Right. It's true.
Wow.
And sometimes out of the Hudson Valley. One of the most interesting and unique experiences we ever had was 5 years ago, right around this time of year, I got a call from a company in Rockefeller Center who wanted a murder mystery in the middle of December on a Friday night. Picture Rockefeller Center on a Friday night in the middle of December.
Yeah.
I agreed to it. And
well, sure.
we went down to check the place out, and parking in Midtown Manhattan, especially around Rockefeller Center during the Christmas.
Kind of impossible.
It's impossible. We had to park, the night of the show, we parked on 10th Avenue, several blocks away, west side. And we carried the costumes, we carried the props, and we got there, and we're performing in a room looking down on the skating rink and the tree, and it was just amazing. It's like, okay, who else does this? But we've worked in casinos, we've worked outdoors. You never quite know who's going to call and when, and what. We've worked in the mine, and what the requirements are going to be. And we're on boats. We perform on the Pride of the Hudson cruise boat out of Newburgh. So, and you have to adjust. The space is always different. Our actors are well trained to accommodate any room or space that they're forced to work in.
I would assume that if you're going to stay in the niche that you're in, that being a prima donna is not applicable.
No, I don't do well with prima donnas.
Well, because the stage is this and then it's that.
Right.
And you have to be able to go with the flow.
It's true, and there's 2 ways of doing this. Like Dracula is a traditional theater piece, and you block it for a stage, a specific stage. And you have stage directions for each movement. That doesn't work in dinner theater because you have to adjust as you're performing. Can't let anyone see your back for more than 3 seconds.
Right.
I'm talking to you. There's someone sitting over there. She's on her cell phone. I need to get her attention. And you have all of this in mind. They're rattling dishes over here. I'm in the middle of something, and he gets up to go to the restroom. All of this is a consideration, and there are people that just don't work well in those circumstances. Me, when I was first cast in a dinner theater show 28 years ago, I wasn't sure because I was doing a lot of theater, legitimate theater. And I went to see one of their productions and I just didn't know if this was going to work for me. So I auditioned, they cast me, and after 3 or 4 performances, I was hooked. I loved it. There was nothing like it.
Well, there's a story every day.
Every day. And at the end of the night, when we're done with the performance, and we take our costumes off and we're sitting around having dinner, the subject is always the unknown that happened during the show. Remember when she yelled that out and you said this? And it's always that type of thing. It's never what was scripted. And then when I work with actors and I work in a legitimate scripted block theater piece, the question always comes up, well, I'm terrified. What happens if I lose my place? Well, I welcome those opportunities. What a great opportunity, because in dinner theater, you never quite know what's going to happen. And working with the audience, it's great training for any type of theater. And it's great training for public speaking, building confidence, and all of that. I have a saying, and I tell this to new actors and people who work with us: if you're not afraid, you should be. Because people go, well, I'm nervous. Well, good, that's great. I'm glad you're nervous. We're all nervous. Everyone's nervous. You know, I'm sitting here, we're talking, I don't know what we're going to be talking about 5-10 minutes from now, but I'm fine with that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you recruit your actors?
A number of ways. Traditional is to have open auditions, put an audition notice out and see what comes in, who comes in. The other is word of mouth. I'm looking for this type. I know a lot of actors, so you put the word out, and somebody always knows somebody. There's all these Facebook pages, and I now own one of the group pages. You put casting notices out. There's a lot of actors in the area, a lot of actors. So, but a lot of them are also very busy. They have something lined up now. They have something lined up next year. They're doing film work. A lot of actors here in the Hudson Valley are chasing the lucrative film work that's around. So there's luckily there has not been a shortage of actors in the last few years.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now when you had the pandemic and everything was shut down, did you have a lot of actors that came up here?
From the city?
Uh-huh.
Yes. I was aware of that. Yes. Looking
so that
for
may have
opportunities.
helped you some.
So this is the thing, and I'll try and make this funny. I'll use some of the sites to find actors, and this happened during the pandemic. I was looking for once. Let's see, this would be the summer of 2021, when things started to ease up a little bit. I put a casting notice out, and I was very specific: mid-Hudson Valley. So I get 20 responses, and 18 of them are from Brooklyn, Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Are you aware of where the mid-Hudson Valley is? I think so. Isn't that up near Yonkers? And I said, here's where we are. I don't think this is going to be worth your time. So yes, there were a lot of people looking to come up, and during the pandemic, during the early days, the first few months when things were really bad, I learned Zoom. I didn't even know what Zoom was before the pandemic. And like everyone else, I set up a studio in my home office, microphone, headsets, Zoom, large monitor. What can we do? What can we do? Okay, we'll do radio theater. I emailed everyone the script, and we all Zoomed, and we did radio theater, and we added the sound effects later. And that worked out well. So that's what we did during the bad days of COVID. That's how we entertained ourselves.
Well, but that was also very important for the people who found you as well.
Yes, because we found some new people, and then this isn't what we normally do. By the way, I do dinner theater, I do living history tours. We perform at all of these different venues live. One of my slogans, live is better. But this keeps you going, learning a character. Even though you've got a script in front of you and you don't have an audience, it's a great way to polish your skills and find new actors.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So what is what are the months of the year, or what are the weeks of the year when you really do your staffing, when you start out for the season?
I would say August. I always have, not always, I usually have auditions in August for our October murder mystery and also for our October cemetery tours. So August is a big audition month. It's getting toward the end of the summer, we're looking at fall, and I usually need 16, about 20 actors. I need 8 actors for the murder mystery, and I need 12 for 2 different cemetery tours. So August is a month. December, getting into January, I'm looking for actors for the February murder mystery. And then I'll either, like right now, I'm looking at casting February, and I will either use people that I know, or I will put the word out, because I always like to bring in new people.
So we're looking at August and October and February.
Correct.
Those are your 3.
And that'll carry me through the rest of the year. I don't have auditions.
Really?
That will carry me. But things always come up. Someone will drop out. This person will say, I want you to contact my friend. She's really interested in working with you. Oh, and I need a person for this. And that happens all the time. All the time. Networking, yes.
That's great. Now, I heard you mention, I think, that you do the cemetery tours in Kingston?
Yes, at the Old Dutch Church in Kingston. Every October, we've been doing them for 8 years.
Wow.
And we present 6, in some cases 7 historic figures. Some of them are at their grave sites. Some of them are not buried at the Old Dutch. We've gone outside the cemetery gates, cemetery fencing, and we've brought, like this year, we had Sojourner Truth, and she was in the cemetery, but she's not buried there, but she told her story. And we had Governor Clinton on his gravesite, right in front of the church. So we do that every year. I also do it in Rhinebeck. Same thing.
So you have a choice of 2 locations
Correct.
for the cemetery ones.
Correct. Right.
And now for the holidays, you've got like 6 or 8 different places.
For the Christmas Carol?
Yes.
Yes.
And then when you go into February, how many locations do you have?
February is usually between 6 and 8. That's what we did this past February. And right now I'm booking those shows now, so that'll be, I'm going to guess 8. And new venues come up all the time. It's like anything else in life, like actors or anything. You might lose one, they go under different management, or it didn't quite work for them for whatever reason, but then someone else calls. About a month ago, I got a call from a place I didn't know existed, the Stagecoach Inn in Goshen, New York. I looked at their website. It's an early 19th century inn, fully restored. I went, met the owner, and I liked her, I liked the place, and I said, it's a little late to be doing a Halloween murder mystery. And she says, oh, I'd really like to do something maybe in December. By the way, we do a dinner theater version of A Christmas Carol. Really? Tell me about it. Get out your calendar, pick the date, let's do it. It's done. We'll be there Sunday, December 4th. I forgot to mention Stagecoach Inn in Goshen. That's one of the public shows. So you lose one, you gain one. We were at the Colony right down the road last month with our Halloween murder mystery. We're there every year. I've done Christmas Carol at the Colony here in Woodstock. So word gets out, and sometimes because we're so diverse and we do so many different types of things, it's a little hard to pigeonhole it or get someone to grasp what is it you do now. And I'm broken into 2 worlds. There's the murder mystery world, and then there's the legitimate theater world. and under that is the history. And the more I do this, personally, I'm more drawn toward what I call the living history projects. Those are very important to me, and I see many, many, many opportunities. People do what we call reenactments. They do history tours. But to go on site and actually meet the person that is related to that historic site and have that person tell you his or her story and interact with you, that's something that very few people are doing. And that's what we excel in. And it takes a lot of research. You have to find the right actor and the right costume.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you have people that follow you from?
Yes, we do. We do. And we have a following. I build email lists. Every time we perform, I collect email lists and I recognize people. They came to the cemetery tour, they came to Dracula, we'll be at your murder mystery. This goes on all the time. And I probably have close to 8,000 email addresses. And I do a monthly newsletter letting people know where we are, what we're doing. And that's how we stay in touch with our fans and our followers.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do your scripts?
Well, the murder mystery scripts or
Any of them.
Any
It
of them.
sounds to me like you're constantly looking for new.
Yes. Well, I'll come up with an idea. There's a format that I use that I've developed over time, over 20 odd years. And I actually teach murder mystery writing every January at something called the NYSTIA Conference, New York State Theater Education Association. They meet at the Villa Roma. It's a 3-day conference for high school kids. I'm answering your question in a long roundabout way.
The Villa Roma, that's up here.
Callicoon, New York.
Okay.
So I developed a format for the kids because they want murder mysteries. They want to go back and write them for fundraising events for their school. So I come up with a theme. First, you have to have a theme. You have to have a setting. So I'll tell you, the last one was called The Mystery of the Alien Invasion. I set it in 1954, and it was a parody of all of the 1950 sci-fi movies. I wrote this for Mohonk Mountain House. An alien spaceship has landed atop Smiley Tower during a conference of Americans Against Saucer Secrecy. So we had all different characters there. We had the professor who was talking about, and I researched this, the Roswell incident and all of the sightings, and then we had the doubters. And so anyway, I'll come up with a theme, I'll come up with a setting, and then I'll come up with characters. And then I'll start at the end. Who committed the murder and why? Who's the suspect? Who are the suspects? There's usually 5 or 6 suspects. They all have a reason for wanting the person dead. And then comes the mystery. And there's lots of clues, and there are red herrings to throw people off. I always include music in the shows. I've done speakeasy themes. I've done 1940s. I wrote a play called Murder Me Always, which was sort of a spoof of Casablanca. It took place in the early 40s in a club. We used big band music, a lot of detail, a lot of clues in that one. So that's how it comes about. I won't live long enough to write all of the scripts for the ideas that I have tossed in a drawer somewhere. But
So you are writing the scripts.
yes,
You're finding locations.
correct.
You're doing the costumes.
Right. Thanks
You're-
for the help with my wife.
Well, but still, you're just doing all of these things.
True, but in my most recent years, and I want to say since COVID, I've learned something that's been very difficult for me, and that's delegating. And I recommend it for anyone in business. And it's not my ego. Like, I want to do this all on my own. It's just, it was hard for me to learn to delegate. I have several people, and I'll mention them. Lauren Thayer just wrote a murder mystery that I produced in October, The Great Pumpkin Spice Murder. She also cast and directed it. Jim Keenan, who's been with me for 6 or 7 years, he is helping me with A Christmas Carol, assistant directing. He also handles the carolers. He has directed Murder at the Mic, Murder at the Speakeasy. I wrote those 2 scripts. Jim takes care of all of that. Ellen Pavlov, she has directed for me, and I just hired her to direct our February murder mystery. And I, for the first time in 25 years, I'm not in all of the murder mysteries anymore. I've stepped back from it, give someone else a chance, and I concentrate on the selling of the venues, the marketing and the promotion. It's a lot of work. I do my own graphic design. I write my own press releases. I market. I spent the whole morning designing posters and designing newspaper ads for Christmas Carol. So I'm kind of a one-man band, but not so much anymore. And my wife is my partner, and she is not only the costumer, but she's my editor. I will bounce ideas off of her. We'll read the scripts together. I'm not a very good proofreader, and she's excellent at proofreading. This word would work better than this word. You should have a comma here. He wouldn't really say that. She would say that. It's that type of thing. And we brainstorm it together, and it's a collaborative effort. And now I have more people to collaborate with. I know I'm forgetting someone, but the people I mentioned are very close, very important to me. There's a woman named Anika Krempel who's been working with me off and on for 7 or 8 years, and she recently came back to help me with my social media, which is something I'm not very good at. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, but I'm not good at it. And she stepped in and said, I'm going to help you with this. We're going to interview the actors. We're going to do some different types of posts and link them and all of that. So I'm learning all of that, and I rely on her to help me with it.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So your organization it sounds to me like you're growing quite a bit.
Yes, I'm in a growth spurt right now. I never thought I would say this at my age, but I'm in a growth spurt, and I'm getting more and more opportunity. I got a phone. I was home today, as I said, working on some design projects, and I get a phone call from the Hurley Library wanting to hire me for a fundraising event in April. And
is that the Hurley Library or the West Hurley Library?
The Hurley Library.
I love those 2 libraries.
Mm-hmm.
They are, when I publish a book, I don't do it so much anymore, but when I first started out, when the books would come out, I would contact the different libraries and talk about read my books.
Right.
And then I also do Reiki and reflexology, and I taught Reiki and reflexology in the different libraries.
Wonderful.
And I adore the Hurley and the West Hurley libraries. They're a little bit smaller,
Mm-hmm.
and they're a little bit friendlier.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of the big, like if you go up to Hudson,
Mm-hmm.
the library is enormous. Now that may work very well for you because you've got room to do anything. You know,
Right.
if you want to have a Coliseum production, Hudson can.
I've never been in that library.
It's huge.
I've worked in Hudson. We've worked at Columbia Green Community College. I've done some plays there in their theater, but I've never been in the Hudson Library.
Yeah, no, it's.
So you gave me another idea.
Yeah, but West Hurley is just this jewel, just this real
This is
jewel.
Hurley Library, the one right on Main Street.
Yeah, and of course it was an old bank or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got different rooms and things, which I think might work well for you.
Well, good. I'm visiting them on Tuesday, and we'll see what's what. And every year we do a fundraiser for the Ulster County Historical Society at the Bevier House on 209 in Stone Ridge. We've been working with them for several years, and I love working with historical societies. So there's more of that coming.
I think that since the pandemic, now that we're kind of coming out of our houses, not everyone is, but
No, they're not.
some people are. I feel like there's kind of like a resurgent. It's like people are really, as they're coming out of their houses, they're saying, well, I'd like to do these things, but I don't want to do those things.
Correct.
And so they're kind of pushing forward in things that they're excited about.
I totally agree with you. Yes.
Which
Or they're
makes
willing
it
to try
good.
new things. And look at where
Yes.
we are. The Hudson Valley has so many restaurants with events. We have so many festivals. Every weekend, there's 2 or 3 or 4 festivals, and it's going to increase throughout the rest of this month and into next month. Look at the summer and fall.
Yeah.
I mean, January is sort of let's take a deep breath and pay our heating bills month, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and then it starts again in February. And look at all of the new venues, the wineries, the distilleries. They're all hosting events now. They're all in the wedding event business, and they're all very, very busy. It's amazing.
Well, we have to make up for lost time.
We do.
Because a lot of us did lose time.
We did.
And of course, some people are not going to come out. But some of the people are going to come out so enthusiastically they're going to cover up for the ones that aren't.
I agree with
I
you
think
on
that's really true.
Mm-hmm.
And there are, another really nice library is north of here. As you go up the hill where the people go to ski.
Yes.
They have a couple of libraries up there that are just lovely. Big spaces that you
Okay.
could do all kinds of things with.
Well, that's a whole nother, opportunity that I have not explored. I did something once at the Morton Library in Rhinecliff. They have a theater space in there. Kingston Library I have not pursued, and there are many others. Every town, every village, and I'm a huge supporter of the library system. We need it now more than ever.
Yes, absolutely.
And they've adapted really well.
Yeah.
Adjusted to, let's call it the post-book era, whatever that is.
Right, yes.
I was in the Kingston Library the other day, and the thing that struck me, you don't see so many books anymore, but there's so many other services. I live in Rosendale, and I went into the Rosendale Library recently, and I got into a conversation with the librarian, and she said, I could show you how to download a phone app on your phone, and you can access thousands of audiobooks. I've never done audiobooks. I'm an old-fashioned guy. I want a hardcover book. Within 5 minutes, using my library password and account number, I had access to thousands of books on my phone.
That's a lovely library.
It is.
I gave a talk there,
Did
and
you?
I really, part of the library is the facility. Like Hurley is an old bank, and
Right. Rosendale's was a church.
Rosendale was a church, and Hudson was something.
Kingston was a grade school.
Yeah, I mean, so they're different. The buildings are different. But it's not only that, it's the people. It's the director of the library.
Correct.
That is, it's like, how open is that person? How creative is that person? Tivoli. The Tivoli Library.
I can't say I've ever been in there. Stone Ridge Library I like, and the Woodstock Library. When I was researching various projects, they have been very, very helpful in there. They take me to the history section, and
They're very helpful, but they have such confines with space,
Yes.
Tivoli has really a theater with a stage and seating.
sounds like I'm going to have a busy day tomorrow.
But just going around to the different libraries, my goodness, you could have yourself, you keep really busy.
Yeah.
And you have I just all of a sudden thought of something else. For people who are into fashion and costumes, you offer a wonderful resource, because I can tell that you really like to kind of be authentic when
Yeah,
you
oh,
were telling me,
absolutely.
right? And so
There's
that's
nothing worse than cheap costumes and costumes that aren't authentic to the time period.
right.
I can spot them, my wife certainly can, and yeah, absolutely.
And I think that your viewers, your customers can even though they may not know exactly,
Right.
they know when something's off.
They
Is
do.
that correct?
It's true, and that gets back to Christmas Carol. We're playing this up close. In some of the scenes, one of the ghosts or Scrooge or Tiny Tim might be as close to you as I am right now.
Wow.
So the costume has got to be good.
Yes.
You can get away with a lot when they're off in the distance on a stage,
Yes.
100 or 200 feet from where you're sitting, but not when you're doing dinner theater and you're doing it up close and the actors are interacting with the audience members. It has to be right.
So all of the time that your spouse is putting into finding the fabrics and hats, oh my goodness.
The hats. The hats are, we have a lot of hats and people donate them. That's another thing. You can't say no. I met a woman, I had a booth at something called the Bagel Festival in Monticello this summer. A friend of mine, Ellen Pavlov, suggested that I do this, and I went and I had a wonderful time, and I met a woman who said to me, I have boxes and boxes of costumes, I'd like to donate them to you. Well, first, I can't say no, because
Right.
she might have some gold
you
in
never
there.
say no.
So I met with her a couple weeks later, she gave me the costumes, and we found some real gems in there, some vintage hats. And so this is all, my wife has her own organic hair salon in Red Hook, Studio KTM. And in the lower level, in the basement level of her salon is where we have all of our costumes, props, and that's also our rehearsal hall, rehearsal studio. We lovingly call it the dungeon.
You know, I never thought about that. You have all these productions, but you've got to learn to do it first somewhere.
Yes.
So you have to have the basement.
We have to rehearse, and it's not ideal, but it's ours, and
Well, you don't want it to be ideal,
No.
because
Oh, no.
if it's ideal, then the people couldn't adapt to
No, they could not, and they have to adapt. And we give you an example, legitimate theater piece, Dracula. We rehearsed that play for Bannerman Island for a 22 by 16 foot stage that was turned at an angle with the audience wrapped around it. I don't have the space to rehearse for that structure. So when we got on Bannerman, we had to re-block a lot of scenes. Actors adapted. Then we go to the Widow Jane Mine. It's a flat stage. I think it was 28 feet wide. We had one entrance instead of three. The actors adapted immediately. Then we took the play to the Milford Theater in Milford, Pennsylvania, a traditional theater space, wing on the left, wing on the right, and there was very little time to rehearse there in the theater that day. The actors adapted. So if they work with me, they adjust, and they're great, just wonderful.
Well, that's good, because that's training.
Yes, it is.
You know, I would imagine that you would be a wonderful resource for young actors.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And they work with us. They learned a technique. They will learn something I would think that is not common elsewhere. I mean, I'm a big supporter of all the theater groups in the Hudson Valley. There's some wonderful people out there. And they all have their own system and way of doing things. I don't rehearse as much as they do. That's just my way. There's a reason for that, and actors adjust. They adapt to that.
You get by with fewer rehearsals.
Yes.
And that's so that things will not be overdone?
So things won't be overdone. I think you can destroy something by overdoing it, over practicing. Also, under rehearsing, and I don't like using that term, there's got to be a better term. It creates a little bit of tension, which keeps you right on the edge, especially if you're doing a comedy.
So you have to get it just right.
You have to get it just right.
And pay attention.
Right.
That's wonderful. What about musicals?
I don't really do musicals. Christmas Carol, well, all of my plays contain music. Christmas Carol, of course, has the four carolers. They sing in harmony a cappella. Our murder mysteries, we use digital music in most cases, and there's at least 1, 2, if not 3 songs in every one of the murder mysteries. So music is...
So you have music?
We have music. Music is a big part of what I do. I won't do a show without music.
So that's it. You've got everything.
Love it.
What about the sets?
Well, with the murder mysteries, there are no sets. The room is the set. We work primarily in the center of the room, or we work against one of the walls with the tables in a U shape around us, wrapped around us. We work between the tables. There is no set in murder mystery. There are key points, like I'll put the microphone here. If we have a backdrop, it'll be against the microphone. But there are no, as you would say, sets in the murder mysteries. If I'm working on Bannerman Island, like we did Dracula, I design a set, and we have a wonderful production company down in Cornwall, Bill Diamond, who builds the set for Bannerman, and that works out really well. But for the most part, I'm not involved with set design. At Mohonk, I use backdrops that I design. Matter of fact, I'm working on that now. Well, the space is 22 feet by 12 feet high, and I always design a backdrop. There's a place in Monticello, I'll give them a shout out, Cobalt Studios. And they hand paint backdrops for companies throughout the United States. Opera companies, they've done Broadway, they do regional theater, and her name is Rachel, the owner. She always paints my backdrops for Mohonk. So that's the closest I come to a set. Because we're not a traditional in-house theater company.
Right. But you still have to have some type of an environment.
Correct.
So she does, but now if you go to Mohonk Mountain, do you do the same show every year, or you do different shows?
Every year, different show.
So every time you go to a place and then you go back the second time, you do something different?
Pretty much. Mohonk, it's a different show every year. Mystery Weekend is always a different show with a different theme. There are shows that I bring back year after year. We have a show called Murder at the Speakeasy. And we've been doing that show off and on for, I believe, 5 years. It always pops up. It's on my website. People go, I want the Speakeasy theme show. Or I want the karaoke theme show. Or I want the 1890s Murder at the Mansion mystery show. So we bring it out, we rehearse it, and there are shows that I've done multiple times at the same location, only because they're popular. Mm-hmm.
And you guys wrote you wrote the script.
Correct.
You did the show, you did the costumes, you did the music.
Correct.
You marketed it.
We're totally self-contained.
Amazing.
Totally self-contained.
Completely amazing.
I rely on the people who are close to me, and we all collaborate and work very closely together.
Do you do a lot of comedies?
The murder mysteries, I would label them comedies for the most part. They have a lot of comic elements. I love comedy. It's one of my favorite genres, what I would call classic comedy. I don't understand a lot of modern comedy. I'm more traditional, people I grew up watching. So that's if I'm writing a comic scene, that's sort of what I aim for. More traditional comedy. That, the Neil Simon era, the early sitcom era, the type of comedies that just aren't being produced anymore.
Well, that's what people are enjoying.
That's what they love. They
Yeah.
love it. Absolutely.
Well, I think it's important. It's escape. It's getting away.
It is.
You know, you don't want anything that's too real. You want something light and
Right.
fun.
And people, you know, I can spot them. Some people come to this reluctantly. I can see it at dinner theater. Really? And I've had actors say that to me. I'm going to give you a quote. An actor said to me, this is about 10 years ago, he said, "Why would I do dinner theater?" He said, "Dinner theater is the Velveeta cheese of the theater world." So he started doing this, and he was great at it, and he couldn't stop doing it.
That's terrible.
I know.
The Velveeta cheese.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Well,
right, whatever. People love
Listen.
it. All walks of life, young, old, rich, poor, they love it.
we are down to 4 minutes.
All right.
So, how can people get in touch with you? Where are we going to find you?
All right. I'll be throughout the Hudson Valley in the month of December with our dinner theater version of A Christmas Carol. Go to murdercafe.net. It's right on the homepage, a description of the show. It'll take you to our calendar page. Look for the date, look for the location, and it'll give you information on how to make reservations or buy tickets. It's very easy.
Well, now, you said you have the Best Western here in Kingston.
Correct.
Is it just one show a year, or how does
I'm
that
at the Best Western several times a year for other reasons, but we have one performance of A Christmas Carol at the Best Western on Wednesday, December 21st at 7
Wow,
p.m.
that's a big date.
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
big room, and we do well there. It's centrally located. It's right off the thruway. It's not far. They're wonderful. They put out a great meal. You get an entree choice. You get salad, dessert, and plus you get the show. And there's nothing like it.
What if you are, because the Hudson Valley is a place now where all kinds of people are trying all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
What if somebody would like to contact you about coming to their location?
All right. I give my phone number.
Yeah.
845-475-7973 or murdercafe.ny@gmail.com. Just if you have a location and you have a room you want to fill, you want to increase business, work with me. I have marketing and promotion skills. I'd be happy to fill that room for you.
Fundraising?
Fundraising, whatever. If you have an association, a company, a nonprofit, you want to raise funds, this is a great way to raise funds.
There is a place here in our area that is desperate to raise funds. It's the Saugerties Animal Shelter.
Really?
Yeah, they are
Okay.
desperate to raise funds.
All right.
So I'm going to tell them about it, because
Thank
they
you.
may have the space somewhere. Well, what else do we, so we can think we just have a couple minutes left. So if somebody's not necessarily interested in Christmas, but they can still contact you for February,
Correct.
and then for the summer,
For the
and then for the
summer,
fall.
we work year-round. January is sort of an off month for us. Outside of that, we work year-round. As you can tell from this conversation, I present a variety of entertainment presentations, from murder mysteries to living history. We're going to be doing something new next year. I'm going to be presenting for the first time living history dinners. Instead of the murder mystery where you have dinner at a historic site and you meet characters and their stories that are relevant to that historic site.
Wow.
Yeah. And this would be a perfect fundraising tool.
Wow. So you come up with new things all the time?
All the time. All the time. Never stale. Just keep going. Presenting new things, new shows, new themes. And I love it. I'm not happy unless I'm juggling 6 projects, but that's just me.
Well, we have to get bored. If we get bored, that's no fun.
Never bored. I know.
Well, here we have come to the end of our hour, and we thank Ellen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
She does such a wonderful job for us.
Yes. Thank you. And thank you.
Oh, it was my pleasure.